Hi, I'm Ed. Welcome to Common Sense.
And I'm John. How are you, Ed?
I'm good, John. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. So today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, account-based marketing. I'm working on this a lot these days as well as Ed. And we have a guest. We're going to talk about ABM with Seamus McGrath from Drift. And as many of you probably know, Drift has really gotten in big time into ABM, and we're going to talk about that relationship and get going with that. But why don't you give us a quick overview of who you are and your role at Drift and kind of your angle with ABM these days.
Yeah, welcome listeners. My name's Seamus. I run partner sales here at Drift. Pleasure to be speaking with you. For the past year and a half, I've been on a journey to just figure out, quite simply, how to make the purchase decision for B2B and B2C buyers easier. So Drift at its core is a conversational marketing platform, and we've dabbled into the ABM platform with a new product last year this time, and we've really aimed to close the loop on a lot of the ABM efforts that we're seeing in the marketplace, specifically when it comes to website engagement and personalization. So as the conversation kind of continues here, I'll get a little bit more into detail into how that works and why it's important. But yeah, for starters, it's really important in today's day and age to personalize that experience for the buyer and also meet them where they're at in their buying journey with you.
And probably good we're doing this early in the MLB season since we got 2 Red Sox fans and 1 Houston fan here. So there could be conflict later on in the season.
There's no competition.
Well, we all know what happened last year. You want to remind us, John?
My memory doesn't go back that far, so
I'll remind you.
Okay.
Well, so you mentioned conversational marketing, Seamus. Let's kind of start with that. That's a term that John and I have talked about, and I mean, people are probably somewhat familiar with it, but just put a fine point on it, push the dots close together, whatever analogy you want to use, and in 30 seconds, refresh everybody what we mean by conversational marketing.
Yeah, so I think a lot of companies and people will define it to their liking, but at its core, it's pretty simple. It's just basically having conversations and engaging with your website visitors while they have their highest intent, while they're on your website. And I think of it a lot like removing the barriers and the friction from your customers. So basically, you can think of it in the form of chat, and everyone's seen conversations on and chatbots on folks' websites. So we're just doing it with a bit of a different spin. I think simply put, just opening up some of those gateways to your sales and your marketing team using chat, using conversations.
Interesting thing you said there. I mean, we call it conversational marketing, but it really does foster alignment between marketing and sales, because so much of what happens is it blurs according to this continuum that John and I talk about so much.
Yeah, and one of the biggest challenges is, you don't know who the people are that are visiting your website. They stay anonymous until they convert on something, and even then they're anonymous until you collect enough information. So that part of inbound marketing is very inefficient. You really don't find out who's interested for a long time in the buyer journey, and it really accelerates that, because you're basically saying, hey, why mess around with this? Let's have a conversation and see what you're up to.
Especially the live view in Drift, where you can go in a live view and see somebody, a target account of yours or an ideal account. You see what page they're on, how long they've been there, and actually chat to them directly while they're on that page. I mean, what an amazing way to catch somebody at the right moment.
Yeah, we know today more than ever, 60-70% of buyers coming to your website already have all that information that they need. So it's even more important than ever to understand buyer intent and get in front of that quicker and faster than your competitors.
And the key metric that you all use kind of as a measure of conversational marketing success is the delta in website conversions before people are using it and after?
Yeah, I think that's definitely how our customers are defining it. among a few other aspects. But more importantly, yeah, I think when you see a healthy lift in conversions, then you can look at a tool like this and say, hey, this is definitely converting better than my gated assets or my form fields. And so I think if you're right, Ed, I think if there's one metric that we'll focus on that our customers care about, it's definitely that conversion piece. Absolutely.
And you say a healthy lift, healthy in your world. I mean, I've heard a lot of people toss around the number double conversions. Is it 2x? Is that reasonable and attainable?
Yes, I think absolutely reasonable. And that's the results that we're striving for. I think if we haven't doubled your conversion rate, then there's something to investigate. So that's been our sort of our stronghold. We're not at that double, the 2x conversion, then we've got to invest some more time into the strategy.
But I would push back on your metrics a little bit because I'm more sales oriented. I would say close rates and sales cycle are two things that you ought to be able to impact directly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, that's at the end of the day, that's the most important metric. Like marketers, we care about conversion rates and optimization and engagement, and sales. And right, from a business standpoint, if you're not generating revenue, what good is it? So one of the areas that we've seen this impact, quite frankly, the most is that sales cycle. So when you think about a typical process, right, you fill out a form field. That lead gets enriched. It goes through your CRM, maybe your marketing automation and then finally it gets routed to an SDR or a sales rep. Well, that takes hours, if not days, right? And by that time, our buyer's on to the next. They're doing other things that are important. We live in a world of infinite supply and the goldfish economy, as I call it. So they're constantly, busy with other things happening. That first conversation that we have with them is actually the most important. So I'd argue when it comes to sales cycles and close rates, if you can increase your lead to response time,
absolutely,
and connect that lead to a sales rep faster than your competitors and actually delight the customer, the future customer, then you're going to increase that close rate and sales cycle. And also you're going to impact revenue because you've got that first at bat. It's your deal to lose.
That's true. And then during the cycle itself, when you're dealing with a buying team, to be able to talk to the team and not just throw stuff at them, emails and that kind of thing that none of them read. You can talk to them and answer their questions, bingo, you're way down the line.
And how is your selling different now that you have this tool, Seamus, than it was before?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I would say, quite frankly, I've been in sales for 8 years, and the first time I got to use Drift, I was just like, this is it, and a few things started to change. And I think the first and most important is you can be more customer focused. And what I mean by that is you can engage with the customer where they're comfortable. You can be more of a consultant than a sales rep. So naturally, they're going to, ask certain questions that are important to them. And it's your job as a sales rep to get to the root of the pain and solve that problem. And I think if you're focused on conversational selling and you're doing it correctly, you put yourself in a position where you're basically being as helpful as possible, and you can take on that consultant role and add trust. And that just starts everybody off on a better foot. And so there's a couple other examples that I could share, but I think from that, from the high level point, I think it's important that we're engaging with the customers on the platforms that they feel comfortable with, being more of a consultant, and just getting access to when they're on the website. I think in the past I've had to kind of been in the dark a little bit, trying to figure out when prospects were engaging with content or looking at emails that I've been sending them. And I think Drift just gives you that opens that door, and just allows us, a sales rep or myself or anyone using Drift, to have the conversations more effectively and just on the buyer's terms.
And what did you think when you went to work for a company that doesn't have a phone?
I still look on my desk and I go to pick something up and it's not there. It's funny. It's a little bit of an adjustment at first. And it's quiet on the sales floor.
Nobody
It's a lot
has
of
phones
typing.
anymore. Come on, we all
No,
have.
but I mean, the company has no phone number. Look at their website.
No
There's
way,
no phone number.
Don't try calling.
If you ask me, there won't be any websites before long either. So, we're all just going to just tune in.
Well, John, let's talk ABM. I mean, I know that's your passion.
Yeah, so it's interesting to me because ABM is all about one-on-one. It's really old school. It's about, it's similar to what we used to do 20 years ago, where you know who you want to talk to, you call them, and maybe it's a cold call and that doesn't work. But it's the same idea. You're trying to have that one-on-one conversation, and the good salespeople never do that cold calling salesy thing. They always do kind of the consultative thing or the challenger thing, right? And so this is not that different. This is actually just using technology to take on the same strategy. You start off knowing who your future customers are going to be, and you call the right people and you talk to them about the problems they're having, and how you can help fix those things in a real gentle way. And it's the same thing, except now it's so much easier.
I love the fact that once you've done that work and you've got somebody interested and they come to the site, now you're engaging with them personally.
Yeah, so you have all that lead intelligence now. That's really your big weapon. You know exactly what's going on. Mm-hmm. You know everything from when they're opening your proposal to visiting the website to opening your emails. I mean, you know everything. So you have
all that first party intent data.
Yeah, I mean, so it's amazing. And so it's great for sellers, but it's actually good for buyers too, because you're not just bombarding them with crap all the time.
Yeah. I like that analogy of, I think what we've been doing in marketing is like scraping the ocean floor, casting a wide net and trying to catch everybody. And with ABM, it's really simple to focus on catching the right fish, right? And spear fishing. And, from a money and time perspective, it makes so much sense to focus on customers that are actually a good fit for the problem you solve. And, average selling price and churn and all those key indicators of a successful business start to trend in the right direction when you bring on the right companies. And yeah. I think ABM is a huge factor in doing that.
Yeah.
What have you seen as really cool or creative playbooks?
I think that there's two buckets I would start with. The first bucket is like those top 50 logos that you're trying to get in touch with and trying to sell. And then the second bucket would be companies that match your ideal profile. You might not know who they are, but you know a lot of things about them, like their revenue or their company size or their headquarters, all that stuff. And for those target accounts, for those, let's say 50 logos that you want to win for a business, there's a ton of creativity that goes into ABM strategy, and specifically as it relates to conversational marketing that I really like. One of the areas I've seen work best is actually creating specific messaging. So like, let's say I was to go after IBM, right? Well, I know that IBM cares about some of its competitors like Cisco Systems, right? And what they're doing in their marketing stack. So I might say, anyone from IBM that comes to my website, I might want to show a message that says, hey, IBM, great to see you here. Companies like Cisco System are doubling their leads with conversational marketing. Click here to find out how.
So you taunt them.
Taunt them.
Yeah. It's like having a name tag. Hi, Bob,
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny because I think it's all about relevancy in today's world. And it doesn't matter. So if I'm an account that you're going after, most websites are going to give you that same experience than someone like, I don't know, my dad that's hitting the site. And so the biggest miss that we have in marketing today is not treating people, especially our target accounts, with the tender loving care that they need.
Yeah, I love Dave Gerhardt's video. I think you shared it with me one time, Seamus, with a bottle of wine. Somebody went to all this work to figure out he was the ideal buyer, find his information, engage by email, send him this package, and follow up on it. And when he got the package, he went to the website, and his experience on the website after they'd done all this work was exactly the same experience I would have had on the website. And the way he articulated it made perfect sense.
Yeah, you couldn't be. I love that example. I think that summarizes everything in one. And it's too bad because you put all that effort into going after these accounts as a sales rep and as a marketer, and you do all those. You send gifts and emails and phone calls, and you finally get in there, and someone's actually engaging with your content or your website, and there's no way that you can tell they're there, absent of conversational marketing. So it's a nice mousetrap.
I think the whole philosophy is so different from what we've been doing with lead nurturing. I wouldn't even call what we've been doing nurturing. It's more like badgering. Right? I mean, and nurturing is actually having a conversation and saying, hey, what's going on? What can I do for you? That's nurturing.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can do that. You can do that now, and you can do it as soon as they're showing some interest by, intent data or visiting the website or whatever it is.
So
Absolutely.
from a conversational perspective, you can build it with playbooks around ABM, the top 50 logos or the ideal buyer profile, but there's also cool stuff that you can do if you've got a page on your site that just happens to be a great pillar page that ranks well with Google. You get a ton of traffic there, but you don't get conversions at a rate commensurate with the kind of traffic you get. Then you can create some playbooks to try to increase the conversions on a page like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's a great question. And I think to understand the scope at which this works, you got to take a step back and think about how conversations and chats worked in the past and why it's failed. I think it's really important to know that chat's been around for 20 years, right? Oracle had a product back in the 90s. And I think one of the bigger misses, and the reason why chat's only been utilized from a customer success standpoint, is because a lot of noise starts to come in, bad leads, bad accounts, and the sales team gets flooded with a lot of different conversations that, quite frankly, they're not equipped to handle or want to. And so when you have a high intent page and you're driving a lot of traffic, what you can do inside of Drift is actually pretty fun, and we do it a bunch here. I know that my best buyer is a 200 to 500 employee company. They're probably in the tech, SaaS, healthcare, finance space, and I know that they're probably domestic in the US. So within Drift, I'll set those parameters, and based on that IP that's hitting my website, I might not know that that's an account that I want to go after, but I can scrape that information. So when they do come to my website within milliseconds, I'm like, okay, great. This fits that criteria that I typically like to sell to industry. And we use a back-end provider called Clearbit to do that. And I can push a message that only displays to companies that meet that criteria while they're on my website, which allows me to filter out a lot of those, that noise, so to speak, that I probably don't want to focus on as a sales or marketing professional.
So on the high intent or on the high traffic page, it's not so much about trying to increase conversions as it is to make sure you're grabbing the right people that are on that page and let the noise just dissipate.
You couldn't have said it better. Exactly. Yep. That's exactly what we're focused on.
That, and it's the efficiency of your sales team too, right? I mean, you're getting those notifications right at the right time. You can make that decision. You can do something, pick up the phone, do a chat, whatever it is. You're not wasting time waiting for those conversion processes to filter down. And, as we've been saying, the people that respond within the first 5 minutes, I don't know what the stat is, but it's like they win 80% of the deals, right?
So this isn't 5 minutes. This is right in line.
Yeah, exactly. So it's.
But the interesting thing about this, John, you and I have talked about the convergence of B2B and B2C because B2B buyers now are all B2C consumers, and those B2C consumer experiences we have are beginning to influence the way we do our B2B buying, kind of our expectations. And this feels like it's really at the intersection of a B2C experience and a B2B interaction. It's really interesting that way.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually think it's more effective in B2B because we're all kind of used to this. We're used to being marketed to and sold to. And so we actually kind of admire it when a sales rep comes through with a clever email or has something valuable to say. We go, wow, yeah, okay, this is cool. Whereas somebody who's sitting at home watching, Game of Thrones and gets interrupted, they're going to be pissed off. So kind of different.
The other interesting thing that I heard you talking about, Seamus, is that essentially you're using a bot to facilitate the personal conversation. And, you know, my sense is a lot of times people think of bots as a way that companies use to try to, you know, have fewer customer service people or fewer salespeople and try to let people self-serve. And you're using it in a very different way. You're using it to pick out the people that definitely want to engage to then facilitate direct connection with a salesperson. Is that a fair way to characterize it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think to take that even a step further, it's, you know, I think a lot of folks should kind of think about bots as off-putting. And we've done a bunch of data and worked with Harvard Business Review as well. And I think that coming back to that word relevancy is definitely part of this. When I think about communication and humanizing the buying experience, it's important to note that buyers only care about getting their questions answered as fast as possible and content that's relevant to them. And so if we can program our bots to do that, then we're going to leave a happier customer, a happier customer success or support team that doesn't necessarily have to answer every question coming in, and a better, more efficient sales team because they're only working with the highest intent buyers.
And what do you see that means in terms of typical close rates? What happens to the close rate?
I think that when you focus on, we call it fishing around the boat. And so coming back to that intent data or buying data, right, that we're kind of focusing on, maybe the accounts that have come to your website the most or the accounts that are engaging with your bots the most, that's where I spend the majority of my time. And thus my opportunity to close rate is much higher because I'm dealing with companies and accounts that are already familiar with the Drift brand. They know we can solve a problem. So close rates definitely go higher. I'm not starting at the 1 yard line and marching down the field to the end zone. I'm already on the 20-yard line. I'm in the red zone, and I just need to march that deal, you know, across the goal line to score. So I'd see them, you know, definitely increasing if you're utilizing the tool the right way.
Well, that's why ABM, you know, they call it flipping the funnel, because you're really, you know, the first people you talk to are SQLs or even opportunities, you know, and that's what you want. Why would a sales rep want anything else? The hell with the marketing funnel, you know, that's a waste of time and money.
All right, there you have it, the definitive word on marketing. But I think that's an interesting segue. One of the things I'm thinking as I'm listening to this is there's a lot of marketing tools. You know, if you're selling a different email system, you'd probably sell that to a marketing coordinator, director of communications, maybe a director of marketing. I doubt even the CMO would be involved in that kind of a decision. On the other hand, you're talking in this case about really a wholesale change in the way that a company interacts with prospects and buyers. And so it's probably interesting, some of the conversations you have, because on the one hand, it's almost like a CEO level philosophical decision. On the other hand, people are thinking of it as part of the MarTech stack, which is bought in a very different kind of a way. How do you reconcile those two?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and I think it's a valid point. I think the answer is it depends. I always think of Drift in terms of the marketing department, marketing buyer, tech stack world, but I do agree with you in the fact that it is a bit of a change in the go-to-market, and it does certainly affect the job roles of folks that are using it.
Right.
And so I think the team's going to be bought in, and you've got to draw the line as a marketing team as to what's important to the business. Is it important to the business that we're closest to our customers, we're giving them information real time, and we're allowing our sales folks to focus on people that actually do have buying questions, etc.? And usually the answer is yes. It's one of those questions, those age-old questions that I can't imagine a marketing or a sales team saying, no, you know, we're not interested in those types of conversations. So while it is a change in business behavior, you know, there's a lot more, I think, that fits into that tech buyer and that tech stack type of equation than it does into you know, the overall like psyche of the business.
But I've had some fascinating conversations. I remember sitting with a CEO of a $200 million company who said, well, we tried a chat experiment, but we had to stop because there were so many chats coming in. I said, okay, hold on, time out. So you're telling me that if suddenly your switchboard was overwhelmed with calls, Instead of adding another operator, another line, you just pull the line out of the wall. I mean, why do you treat this differently than the way you've communicated with people in the past? So I think definitely, maybe you're selling primarily to tech companies where it's more second nature, and John and I have conversations with industrial companies where this is like a newfangled kind of a thing. Maybe that's part of the difference.
See, I wouldn't sell to the CEO. The CEO has a different set of issues and priorities and things like that. I'd sell to the end users, the sales reps. And, those guys are going to go, damn, this is the best thing I've ever seen. I need this. And you get a groundswell of that going, and their boss is going to pay attention. And then ultimately the CEO is going to say, fine, whatever you guys need to do to drive revenues. To me, that's the way to go, because they're already sold. They just need to know about what it does.
Right. So sometimes there's great successes with conversational marketing, and sometimes I'm sure it flames out. When it flames out, what leads to that? What causes it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so I think in order to understand when it doesn't work, the best sort of use case I can provide is like the adoption. So the way that we typically operate is at Drift, we sell to the marketer and we scale through sales. And so I think there's 3 leading indicators that tell us whether or not we're going to be successful. And the first indicator is how many conversations we're having in the tool. If it's less than 20 conversations a week, that's a red flag for us, right? So if you think about it, a normal website, we'll say, for a mid-market business is probably around anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 uniques per month. And if we're not getting 20 folks to engage, we've got a problem. Either the messaging, needs to be replaced from a "how can I help you" type of messaging, maybe more towards down here, can I ask you a question, right? So there's some adjustments that we can make there. But yeah, less than 20 conversations a week is a red flag. I'd say less than 5 active users inside of Drift is also a red flag for us. The reason I bring that up is because there's a power in numbers when it comes to Drift. And when you do have adoption through the sales team and you have a few folks using it, I think there's a lot higher chance that people will adopt it better, and that you can have a little competition around who's closing or creating the most demos booked. And just in general, like, a successful business in the conversational space typically has, anywhere from 2 to hundreds of sales reps. So we like to see at least 5 users. And then, I'd say the third is the amount of demos that are actually being booked in the platform. And if it's less than 5 per week, again, there's probably some adjustments we'll want to make. And there's a couple other factors that go into this, but, users, demos booked, and conversations are the 3 pillars of running a successful conversational marketing effort. If we're not focused on those metrics, then we might lose sight of why this is going to be beneficial, and thus, we never get off the ground.
So bare minimum 20 conversations, and of those 20 conversations, then 5 sales meetings booked. That's a pretty good ratio of conversations to sales meetings booked.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, if you're converting anywhere from 10 to 25% of your conversations into qualified meetings, you're going to be successful.
Right.
That's a healthy funnel. Mm-hmm.
I think also training has got to be a big part of this. You've got to have these reps giving value in these conversations. We always say that, but I mean real value, actually knowing what to say and when, and just automating responses through a human, that's not helping at all.
For me, a great indicator is when somebody gets involved with internal messages and coaches, because then I know management's bought into it. I mean, I saw a situation recently where somebody, a prospect, a website visitor, asked a question, and the answer was, "Oh yeah, we can do that," or something like that, and that was the end of it. And then I saw the manager jump in with an internal message, say, "Hey, come on, we've got some resources, share some of the enablement content, give a link." And to their credit, the BDR saw those and acted on them, shared some resources in the chat, re-engaged the person that was there, and then had a great conversation as a result. And so because the manager was involved and watching and bought into the idea and wanted to see it succeed and doing that coaching, then, I mean, to John's point about the salesperson's interest in the facility, it's increasing it.
Love that.
I think it's important for you guys to push that, if you don't already, that, plugging a technology in isn't going to solve your problem. It's how you use it that really counts.
All right, so speaking of technology and how to use it, back to John's passion for ABM, tell us about some of the specific tools and capabilities in Drift to help with this bringing conversational marketing to make ABM more effective. Yeah,
definitely. So to kind of answer that question, I'm going to unlock the way that we're thinking of ABM, and I think how most people would probably think about it as well. And so the biggest problem that I've seen in ABM comes back to that analogy we talked about earlier with Dave Gerhardt at VP of Marketing opening up a gift of a big basket of wine and expensive cheese, and then basically going to the website, which he had never heard of before, and then having this subpar experience and having to fill out a form to talk to a sales rep or do some type of action, like pick up the 1-800 number and call their sales team. And the reality is that not a lot of folks are going to do that. And so it's our responsibility as marketers, especially if we're focused on target accounts, to create that experience, which I think is the missing gap right now in ABM. So we're really good at identifying our audience, our target buyers, our personas, and we're really good at leaning on different softwares and tools to target them and follow them around the internet and send them gifts and make them aware of us, right? But what we lack at is allowing them to have a conversation with us, right? When they do get to something of importance like our website, which is typically where we're driving them. And also allowing your sales team to have insight when they're on your website, in your world, probably the most important part of a sales process. So with Drift, what we've doubled down on is giving sales team and unlocking the power of letting your sales team know when those target accounts are on your website without having them convert, which I think is the most important part. So it's a proactive approach to say, hey, IBM's on the website, red flag, red flag, red flag, go talk to them now, right? And automating the right type of messaging that's relevant for them through chat, and also allowing them to do some type of call to action, whether that's, look at a certain white paper that's relevant to them, or book a demo, or talk to somebody right now. So all three of those things, I think, are missing in the ABM experience, and most of them revolve around their website experience and how they're interacting with your brand. So that's really what we've brought to market, and we've done it through conversations and through chat.
It's such a great point. You do all this work and spend all this money and come up with all these creative approaches to get people to your site. And then when they get there, what do you do? I mean, that's such a great way of explaining it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing too is I think we've also forgotten, and this is a little bit off the point, but also relevant. I think we've forgotten that in ABM, we tend to focus a lot on the accounts and the account level and the accounts that fit us best, but we forget that it's a contact, it's a person at that account buying that's making that decision.
It's more than one.
People, more than one, totally. It's those people that matter most, not the account, so to speak.
Yeah, we see the same thing in intent data. It's so much about understanding who the right contact is.
That's why people abandon ABM too, because they get to that point and then they can't make those conversations happen. And, they've invested all this money in technology and data and whatnot, and, they got nothing to show for it.
Yeah. And it's tough too. Like you think about the process of where are we sending those people? We're sending them to a landing page, right? Yeah. We know that 1%, 2% at best are going to complete that. Why do we keep doing that? Why not just open up a conversation and just learn a little bit more about why they came there in the first place, right?
But this whole movement about ungating content,
Hmm.
There's always this hesitation. Yes, but, well, and this is a perfect solution. You ungate the content, and the yes, but is, or yes, and you have a conversation.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it won't be long before these conversations are routed through Alexa. So you'll have a real conversation, through your device in your house, and it won't.
Mhm.
That's
And
the
that
reason
would
I
be
feel
great
we
for
won't
me.
even need websites anymore, because it's really kind of getting to that point.
And I won't need spell check.
Well,
All right, real quick before we run out of time, kind of personal reflections. What do you, John? I mean, from your ABM angle and from your extensive MarTech experience, is this a fad? Is this a gimmick? What are you thinking about it?
No, I think it's a game changer. I really do. I think the biggest problem in ABM is making those connections. And everybody who really does it will tell you that. It's not finding the ideal customers. It's not finding their profiles. It's not even necessarily making some sort of digital connection. It's really just having those conversations.
Right.
And I don't know of any other way of doing it other than picking up the phone. And we know that doesn't work very well. So the cool thing about conversational marketing is the person on the other end is making the approach. They're coming to the website. So they're there. Why not talk to them? It's as simple as that.
Seamus, obviously you drink the Kool-Aid every day, but kind of what's your personal take on it?
It's a great question. I think that I haven't come across a more effective way, absent of drift and conversational marketing, to perform ABM or to have conversations with buyers. So I think it's here for the long haul. I think we're still in the bottom of the first inning as far as adoption goes, but more and more companies are tuning in, and they're realizing that this is a big advantage and a big channel that they're missing out on. So I think it's here for the long haul. I think it's going to continue to evolve, and it'll change as this becomes more widely adopted. You know how marketing every couple of years has a new shift. So as people get tired of interacting with bots, eventually something else will crop. But for now, this is definitely the preferred way to go to market. And I think I'm all in on it. So.
And my Kool-Aid that I drink is intent data. And I believe that that's where the real opportunity is, the intersection of these, because so much of what we've talked about has been first-party intent data and how you use that as part of ABM and conversational marketing. If you can get savvy about how to use third-party intent data that connects the dots with who the actual contact is, then your conversational experiences from an ABM and even a broader account basis can be absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah, and putting together your account list too. It's great for that.
Right.
People already know people are interested. Boom.
Cool.
Talk to them. Mm-hmm.
Well, we grabbed Seamus on the last day of the month, which I know is a busy sales day for him. And he was gracious to spend some time with us today. So, John, what do you have? How should we wrap this up?
Well, thanks very much, Seamus. It's been wonderful. I want you to let everybody know how they can get in touch with you, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I appreciate the time, and Ed and John, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to talk shop with you both. You guys are awesome to talk with in terms of staying ahead of the curve in marketing and digital and intent. So appreciate you having me on. Easiest way to get in touch is either through Ed or John, or feel free to reach out directly, smcgrath@drift.com over email, or chat into Drift, and you'll automatically get routed to me. So all options work.
All right. Thanks very much. Appreciate your time.
Happy month end, guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely.
All right.